Good morning and welcome everybody to SGF Day, what is it, 4 now? Hi, I'm your host, Them Demo, doing a bunch of coverage along with my also host, Rods Caden, here for Summer Game Fest. We have the Accessibility Summer Showcase 2024 here this morning to talk about and highlight. And I've got two amazing guests with me today, first of which is my main host and helper with SGF, Rods Caden. How are you doing today, buddy?
I am doing well. I'm really excited for this showcase, and honestly, all the showcases we're gonna have today. But yeah, I'm pretty pumped to see what they're gonna have.
Yes, same.
For accessibility.
Same. Today is gonna be chock full of awesome stuff. We've got the accessibility showcase this morning. We have Summer Game Fest, the live actual show. Later this afternoon, and then we have Devolver Digital to kind of close it out with some pretty like we're gonna start with the serious and end with the funny. I think Devolver always puts on a pretty interesting show, so I'm excited for all three of them. We also have another co-host with us this morning, AKO AtomicKnockout. Welcome in, friend. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Did I start a little too quickly?
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello. I'm a little orb right now. How is everyone doing? I'm doing fine. I'm a little sick, but we're getting through it.
That's all right. We were talking before getting everything set up and everything, and I think all three of us are sick. I'm dealing with a little bit of a cold that my kids brought home, and Rods had mentioned that he's getting over a cold. So, sick gang coming together to provide an accessibility showcase.
There's a joke to be made there.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I was not aware of until this morning when I pulled up the showcase, and they had it in the description for the premiere, they are highlighting 20 games today. They're going to have guest appearances from disabled gamers and accessibility consultants, and they're going to have game key giveaways, which is pretty awesome. So the audience can maybe grab some free games with some game codes. But 20 games, that's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of games. A lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And for the giveaways, I also hope we're not covering the QR codes or anything.
I know. Oh my God. I felt so bad for Gorilla because like our heads were right over the QR codes. And I'm like, I'm not gonna mess with the cameras live while we're trying to react to this at the same time. So hopefully they have something that's more centralized on the screen instead of like down in the corner. But yeah,
20 games. It's a lot.
Like, top left.
Yeah. Do we have any expectations of like what games we might see? I have one, and that is so during the Game Awards last year, there was a trailer that they showed for a game all about being deaf, and it's focused on music. Like that could show up here, I think maybe. But other than that, I can't think of anything specific that like very, very innately highlights accessibility, right? Like key to the game's story or the game's mechanics or anything like that. So.
Yeah, I don't have any expectations really. I think I have more expectations regarding like features than specific games. Like I'm hoping for some like font options or like a dyslexia friendly font or like more controller compatibility, especially with I forget what it's called, but it's the one where it's like the big circle and the two buttons. I'm gonna try and find it.
Xbox has a specific accessibility featured controller, and Sony actually just came out with their version of an accessibility controller that's modular and you can put different parts to it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and that was the second version.
Oh, is that a V2? I wasn't aware
it's a V2 because they had one before too, way later than Xbox did theirs. But like, I was surprised that they released a new one that's very modular, but they had one already before.
Okay.
But it was interesting that they changed it. But yeah, one thing that I did want to mention before we started is that I wonder if we're going to see any game from any of the big studios or publishers? Because usually when we hear about things, it's like in terms of accessibility, it's usually like Naughty Dog or something like that.
Right.
So it almost makes me wonder if one of the big ones are going to show up in some capacity.
Yeah. I think Sony has a very good, like, they really put a good foot forward in terms of having a wide array of accessibility options in a lot of their games, right? They have kind of a standard suite that they try and hit for all of their first party studios, like Naughty Dog, Santa Monica Studios, Insomniac, etc. Yeah, so that'd be really good. I know of one pretty prolific disabled gamer, and I think he goes by Blind Gamer Steve. I don't know if you guys are aware of him, but he's a huge advocate for accessibility in video games, and I'm wondering if we might see him at some point during this showcase. We do know that it's going to be for about 45 minutes. They were posting in the chat, so I really like how they're like giving us info in the chat and everything while this is going by. But yeah, we've got about 45 minutes to cover these 20 games, so I think we're getting a good chunky presentation that's got a lot of potential. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's a good length, a good ratio of like number of games, and like Akio was saying, enough time to discuss some good features in between there.
Right. Yeah, same. Any last minute comments or predictions that we want to make prior to the show? We've got about a minute or so before it goes live.
I don't think so. I'm pretty open-minded about just anything that could happen. I think it would be cool to see a lot more like AAA companies creating accessible games.
Yeah.
Because with my own experience, it's usually from like indie studios or just like small dev teams that create accessibility, while major companies, they're focused with the majority without even thinking about minorities, you know?
For me specifically, I think I'd really love to see Nintendo start to pick up a lot more accessibility features. When you look at when you go to the options for a Nintendo game, there are like 5 options, I feel like, or something.
Pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, I'd really like to start pushing them to put more accessibility features in their games, which, you know, it might be kind of a cultural thing that's different compared to here, but I'd really like to see it.
Yeah, I agree. If we can get one good Nintendo game on here, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, same.
I already love the aesthetic of this.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the YouTube. I think this might be a YouTube premiere thing.
I got excited. I was like, oh, I love mecha stuff.
Yeah.
I thought
YouTube has been, I think for the premieres, they have like 20 different options now that you can do for like the countdown, and I think this is one of them.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, me too.
And I mean, the accessibility showcase had to pick this one, so good on them.
Yeah. They've got good taste. I agree with their taste. Oh yeah, look at this countdown. It's sick.
I know, it's nice.
Good morning, everybody in chat. Tom, Mochi, April, AKO.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, hi. It's very cyberpunky.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's indicative of anything.
Oh no, I'm blending in with the background.
Oh no!
Use one with the accessibility. Hey, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to this year's Accessibility Summer Showcase 2024.
Hi, Laura.
We're covering up her face.
I'm a white woman with bright blue hair, shaved on one side,
her name,
wearing a plain black dress.
Lower
I'll
thirds.
keep this introduction brief, as I know you're here to find out about cool upcoming accessible video games. The Accessibility Summer Showcase aims to be a place for disabled gamers to find out about cool upcoming and recently released video games, while knowing upfront if they're likely to be accessible for them upon release. While not every single video game showcase today is going to be accessible for every single disabled gamer, the aim of the showcase is that
Rods, you're by yourself again. I'm sorry.
There will be at least a couple of interesting games
it always happens.
that are going to be playable for you, no matter who you are. If you'd benefit from audio description or sign language interpreter support, there are American Sign Language, British Sign Language, and audio-described versions of the showcase available on youtube.com/Laura K. Buzz. If you'd like to find most of this year's showcase titles in a single place,
I love her
we have a
tattoos.
Steam sale page this year. You can find it at the link on screen now. There
I kind of like it that it's all on her channel too.
Yeah, she really champions this. This is cool.
Absolutely.
This year's showcase doesn't have a sponsor.
Pine Hearts is on this list, calling it. Let's see, April. Let's see.
No sponsor.
Please consider supporting Accessibility at patreon.com/LauraKBuzz. Your support helps the Summer Showcase to exist, alongside
it's very different from the SGF
and the
charging billions of dollars.
Yeah, oh my god. We're definitely talking about that later today, Rods.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, first game.
Ooh.
This is Elsie, the upcoming
we saw this at Gorilla.
bullet hell action platforming roguelike shooter from Night
By
Shift Games and
Playtonic.
Playtonic Friends.
Yeah.
Elsie isn't just
it's
packed with
published by
hyphenated
Playtonic,
genre
okay.
tags and Technicolor action, however. The Night Shift team have been hard at work to provide a host of accessibility features to make Elsie as accessible as possible to anyone who wants to play.
Zai, the funny thing about that
If you just
comment
want to
is
absorb
the
gorgeous
host
style
of
and play
this
through the
show
story,
was saying
there's
that
an
in the chat.
invincibility mode, which might
Oh,
also
really?
come in
Yeah,
handy
they're
when
like,
struggling
are you
against
ready for the
particularly
Silk Song
tricky boss
reveal?
fights.
Let's go.
To help you focus on the
funny.
hyperkinetic on-screen action,
Can they say
there are
that?
modifiers to allow you to
It
blur,
would be so sad if they
or
got in
even
trouble
turn off
for
the
that.
I
backgrounds
know, right?
entirely. There are also options
I will
for
say
adjusting
though,
the
like
amount
I
of screen
really
shake you
one thing that I
experience
was already
to help with this
expecting
even
and we're
further.
getting to see here is that even
Elsie
though
is
they
an
may be
incredibly
showing,
colourful
hopefully
game,
even showing
so it
games
has
that we
options
haven't
to
seen
assist
before,
those with color vision deficiency too.
the bigger focus on like the features
Options for
themselves
player
is
outline
really
or
Yeah.
cool to
enemy
see.
outline,
Yeah,
Yeah,
all
I
the
agree.
to
specifics.
adjust the hue
Yep.
to your liking to make sure the Technicolor action is as visible
Dad,
as
man, thank you for the raid.
I
Oh, Dead
love-
Man
If you need
Raid!
assistance with reflex mechanics,
I love the
there will also
player
be an option to
outlines.
adjust the
They're
timing
really
required to
cool.
correctly
Yeah.
hit a parry, as well as
'Cause
following
it's
up
just-
with those all-important counterattacks.
There's a lot of games that I've played where it's
So to recap,
hard to
there's an
like
invincibility
keep
mode,
track of your
parry and
character when it
counterattack
blends
timing
into the
adjustments,
background. So I
font
like
size
that
modifier,
you can change
colorblind
the color of
assistance,
the
player
outline,
and enemy outline
Yeah.
whether
options,
it's having
rumble
fun with
strength
it
and screen
yourself
shake modifiers,
or just
and
turning
options
it
to
white
blur,
completely like on the
desaturate, or remove
screen.
backgrounds.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like that they
Elsie is a
highlighted
love
an
letter to
invincibility
retro-action
mode.
platformers of old,
Mhm.
while
That's
packing in
like
plenty of new
huge
elements
for
to
people
give the
that have
genre a
maybe
modern twist.
visual.
And we want as many people as possible to be able to
And
issues.
motor as well.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Please consider wishlisting the game.
That's one thing I really
Like
enjoyed
previously.
in
And stay
Another
tuned to the
Crap's
Night Shift
Treasure.
Playtonic
Oh,
That came
really?
out recently is them
Yeah.
having a mode that it's not really invincibility, but it's like you get a gun, so you just kill everything in one shot.
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's just-
nice.
It's
That's
really
cool.
funny.
For like
They did
experiencing
as
the
a joke.
story, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Studio based out of India called I Miss My Friends Studio. We're working on our first.
I feel like I've heard
title,
of this one
Fishbowl.
before.
Fishbowl is a
Oh, it's
slice
so
of
cozy.
life coming of age story told over a month. There are no forced
going for that
daylight cycles
Stardew
in Fishbowl,
crowd.
and
Yeah.
you can take all the time you need. to
Richard
No,
is
no
salivating.
forced day-night
You
cycles.
video call loved
Let's
I
go.
love that.
Nice.
Ooh, and we have, I believe it's called Vertiligo.
Yep.
Yep.
Characters, love that.
Here you match snippets to the correct track as per color or icon.
And I also love when
This
it's
game has
when
no
it's
fail
games
state,
from
and no
places
matter
that
how you do
aren't
it, your
usually
colleagues will
you don't
cheer
usually
you
hear
on
too
and
many games
support
coming
you.
out from.
You solve two puzzles
I know that that's
to
not
relive
necessarily the
childhood
case with this
memories.
one, but just like
No time limits or
whenever you
penalties
just
here.
see a
Take your
location,
time
I
to go through
remember
all
we
the
saw quite a few
sentimental
from
objects
like
our
Ukraine
owners
even
received,
coming
whether
out.
it's through
Right.
keyboard, mouse, or the
It's
controller.
always cool
You
to see.
pair
Yeah.
tasks and get to know yourself better.
Like
one
that you
day
can
at a
just
time.
take your time through
Currently,
everything
Fishbowl
and you
has
can go on your own
options
pace.
to change the volume of sound effects and
It's
music.
good not
and
only
also
for
an
like
option to turn off
just
screen
your
shake.
own
We
comfortability.
also make sure to have both visual
What
and
was I trying to say?
audio
Comfortability? I don't know how to say that word.
Yep, that's right.
But just being comfortable or just like dependent on like how you're using to play the game, it might be a little harder to play. So I like that even if you make mistakes, people still cheer you on. There's no like punishment to anything.
Yeah, I feel like there absolutely needs to be games that are like that.
Yeah.
Because many times you don't. I feel like the industry in general has focused so much more on these extremely difficult games that I think it's important not to forget the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd really love to see one day like a coalition of all of the studios coming together and saying, hey, here is the standard list of accessibility features that are going to be featured in every single game. right? Like across the board, it'd be nice to have that eventually.
Yeah, and I think the most important part too is that some of these features may seem easy to implement, but you can talk to any developer. Some features are very difficult to like add.
Yeah.
So like if there were tools that were like plugins into different game engines and things like that that made it easy for developers to add it, I think that would be the biggest difference to being able to get us to a place where we have a standard of accessibility.
Yeah, like an SDK that's universal across different game engines or something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our intuitive inventory systems make
I think that's the biggest barrier.
With color-coded references and clear icons, ensuring
what was that,
accessibilities.
I think this game is really cute.
Yeah, this is very adorable.
Sounds in the main menu, players can tailor the game to their preferences. Prepare for epic battles as you meet formidable enemies throughout your journey. Each mask grants unique abilities, empowering players to adapt their fighting styles and overcome challenges. And with distinct sounds for every enemy, player can rely on auditory cues to anticipate and react to threats.
That would be cool if there was a mode where you could play even if you're completely blind, if based only on audio cues. That would be
cool.
With carefully chosen color
and I think a lot more games, not just for accessibility purposes, but also just for general enjoyment of games. I love it when you can just hear the audio cues letting you know, like, hey, this attack is about to happen. Like how in like Breath of the Wild, because I haven't played through this game, but I think in Breath of the Wild, Ganon, like you can see exactly like when he's starting to cast to attack a specific way, and to have those audio cues are just really cool in general.
I will always remember how back in 2019, when Kingdom Hearts 3 had just released, how excited I was to play the game. I had been a longtime fan of the series and was finally ready to experience
a man of culture,
trilogy.
Rods.
However,
Kingdom Hearts 3, let's go.
No!
He's a fan.
No! I'm not a fan.
I really had lost.
It's all lies. People like to lie.
Only not being able to get through
don't
first world,
believe anything you hear.
Just not knowing where I needed to go or what I needed to do to progress throughout the game. I will never forget how upset I was.
Is Kingdom Hearts 3 really that bad? It's just the tone of the whole series.
To them on the phone and just telling them, hey, I think I have to.
It's very believe it coded.
That because of my blindness, I can no longer keep gaming.
Oh man.
And it was a pretty big thing for me because growing up, video games had been the best way for me to cope with losing my vision and just not being able to control what was going on in my life. I had all intentions to never play a video game again, and for the next 2 years, I kept true to that promise. I thought that I would go the rest of my life without playing another video game. But, you know, in 2021,
I would be so sad.
My brother-in-law, he sent me a text telling me
I think
about
that's
a game called
probably
Last
some of the
of Us Part
hardest
2,
things is when
and
you
how I should check it out,
have vision or have something and then you lose it as time goes on because of something.
Some kind of degenerative disease of some kind.
Myself, there's no way I'm going to be able to
truly heartbreaking.
Due to a limited amount of vision. And boy, was I wrong. I could have not been any more wrong. And it was a welcome surprise for myself to boot up the game and realize that my vision wasn't the problem. It was that up until this point, games really just weren't being made to accommodate gamers like myself and so many others.
Oh yeah,
Last of Us Part 2 was a work that Brandon Cole and Naughty Dog did on The Last of Us Part 2. I don't think I would ever have gotten back into gaming, and I can only imagine where my life would be right now if I didn't get back into gaming. I owe accessibility in gaming so much.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, people are missing out on playing games because they're not being catered to.
Right.
Like he said, he is able to play games, but games just weren't made for him.
Right.
Such as Arcade Spirits, The New Challengers, Penny Larceny, Gig Economy Supervillain, and our upcoming title, The Shadow Over Cyberspace. Today, I'd like to demonstrate some of the accessibility technology that we've built into our games.
I don't know what Penny Larceny is, but I'm already a big fan of playing as a villain.
Game, Penny Larceny,
yeah.
In this
well, we're gonna find out.
You play a supervillain underling named
It's
Penny,
cool that they're
working
showing
for
a few
various
games.
supervillains
Oh,
to
and this
help
one's out
Cthulhu
now
Mythos.
already. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Ooh.
All of our games feature a self-voicing mode. Just tap the V key at any time to activate.
Self-voicing enabled.
In this mode, extra narration is used to describe imagery, and user interfaces are streamlined. Let's demonstrate with this scene where Penny, the woman in the black and white striped shirt and mask, is going out on a date with Farsight, the superheroine in the colorful but practical costume.
Farsight,
Cute.
I'm so glad we're finally able to talk outside of our day jobs. It's nice to get away from all that mask and cape stuff. Penny, absolutely.
You know,
What's
for
a
all
good
the
first date question?
negatives
The
of
beeping
like
sound
AI
lets
and
players
stuff, I
know
think it would
that
be
it's
really
time to make a
cool
choice.
for like
Alright, let's see.
AR
what do
with
we
voices
pick here?
from people that actually
What are
signed
her
off their
hobbies?
voices
Yep.
to be
Sewing,
used for something
stamp
like this.
collecting,
100%. It would give it so much
Where-
more
Would you
character
rather fight
and
one
more
horse-sized duck
emotion, and
or
you could connect to these
100
characters so
horses?
much closer. Yeah.
Penny,
I agree.
Absolutely,
I'd like
because
to
yeah,
ask
it
you
is
an
so
important
expensive to
question.
have a voice
Most
actor
scholars
voice
and
all of these
philosophers
lines.
have
So to
wrestled
have a
with for
solution like this that
generations.
may be cheaper for
Penny,
small
one
studios,
horse-sized duck or
you know, we
100
hear
duck-sized
so much about the
horses.
negative sides of AI
Which
and
do
stuff
you
like
buy?
that, but there's so much
Farsight.
good that it can do as well. I
Horse-sized
think.
duck.
And honestly, a lot of voice
I
actors are like
actually
open
bought
to
him
it as
last
long
week.
as they're not being taken advantage
sighted
of, right?
players
Like as
have
long as they're
options to help
being
customize
fairly
the user
compensated
interface
for
to
their
their
work
needs.
and they have
You can
ownership
adjust
over their
fonts used
voice and
by
things like
game,
that,
picking
like
between
they can
comic book
find
style,
solutions and work together. It's just corporations,
simplified font
especially
for
big
easier
ones,
readability,
like to try and take advantage of
and the
technology
standard
and like
open
just boot
dyslexia
people
font.
out, right? So
Absolutely.
Changes carry through
Oh,
to
look,
user
and it's text
interfaces,
that's good for
dialogue
dyslexia. Look at
boxes,
that.
and more.
Oh,
awesome.
nice. I
Dialogue
was
is
literally just
colored
talking
to match
about
the
that.
speaking character, or can be
I
set to
think
monochrome. You can also
The only
invert the
issue I
text box
have
to
with
white.
people
Lastly,
like
I'd like to
signing
give a little
off their
sneak
voices
peek into our
isn't
next
that
game, The
part,
Shadow
but
over Cyberspace,
my biggest issue is
in which
like
the Cthulhu mythos is
like for
retold
example
through the
myself,
apocalyptic
there are
lens of the
sometimes
Y2K
when I
crisis
pronounce
and
a
90s
word
internet
and it's a
culture.
little like
In this game, we make use of
it's
video
not
and screen
clear what I'm
filters to create
saying.
retro computer effects.
or just like
Seen
in
here is
general
an
there are
example
people
of
who have
that
like
with an
lisps
angry
and
woman
stuff,
drawing
or
pixel
like
art on a laptop
they have
screen,
like the
with a
harsh
looping
S's
video
that
of
really
fire
mess with
behind
my
her,
head.
and an
So
LCD
it's like
filter on top.
I think using
We are
that
Lotto
very
Tech.
bare
Speak
bones
your piece
narrator
or
like
go
right
to
here,
pieces.
Mhm.
I
Who are
think
you?
it's
And what
just the
convinced you
best
that
way
approaching the
to
crawling
make it
chaos was a
accessible
good life
because
decision?
it's the
For players with
easiest to hear,
photosensitivity,
you know?
we've added
There's
in
a
Oh, I
lot of
see.
clarity with it.
Gotcha.
Get the same
Yeah.
visuals, but
Yeah,
they're
for
a
sure.
static
Yeah, and
picture
that's something I
easier on the
would not
eyes.
have even thought about
The game
And, like-
also
since
makes
that
use of
isn't really a
video
thing for
during
me, but
sequences
that makes
where you
sense.
watch
No reason to
television.
have just an extra
We use
option, right?
open
Like the more
caption
options, the
footage
better.
everyone can enjoy.
Like
I agree.
there's no downside
And
to having
using
more
self
options, in
voicing
my
mode.
opinion, right?
Additional visual narration.
Yeah.
Have this, have a different option, because yeah, like you said,
That
if
gives
this
way
more
to the
robotic
3D23
voices like
logo.
works best for you, there might be people who like a
WYTHTV.
more emotive or like a more natural
Innsmouth,
sounding voice may
Dunwich.
work best for them too. So yeah, more
Mhm.
options I think
Pattern
is always
plays
going
through
to be the
static.
best.
April, your comment, I think I'd like to try and have a little bit of a discussion about it after this is over, because I have thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I love that the
Two teenagers
text to
visit a
speech guy.
1950s World's Fair exhibit on
This guy.
telecommunications.
I love that they're adding in additional details
Moving forward,
to
I'm
it. It's
Mm.
not just
sure
reading
Right.
the
our stories
text,
are as
it's
They're
adding
describing
more
the
to
scene.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gaming should
Yeah.
be for everyone.
Which we don't
And,
see a lot
have a good
in
one.
like the text to speech
Hello, I'm Lucy Blundell,
media
the
that
indie
you see on like
developer behind
YouTube shorts and
Videoverse,
stuff.
which is a
Mm.
narrative
Mhm.
adventure game focusing on character development, friendship,
It's real
and love
nice.
in the old school internet. As a disabled developer, I wanted to include positive disability representation in the story, but the game
One-
itself has many
Oh, that's bright.
accessibility features.
Yeah, it is.
That is
Sorry.
very bright.
Today.
Flashbang.
Videoverse can be controlled using mouse.
It kind of
keyboard,
reminds me of
touchscreen,
like
or
the
controller.
Windows
There are no
accessibility
button
settings where you
combos,
can
no quick
change like
responses required.
Mm.
white on black, black on white.
High contrast and all that
yellow.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're doing that on purpose because
With audio
it looks like a
keyboard
retro
selection.
computer.
Yeah.
Videoverse
Yeah.
is made in RenPy, the visual
I just
novel
hope they
engine,
can
which
choose the
already
colors
includes
and it's
several
not like
accessibility
dependent on
features.
each
There's self-voicing
person's
and separate volume bars for sound,
like,
music, and voice.
profile, you know?
The default
Mhm.
font can be switched
Actually,
to
April, I
red color.
100% agree with you, and I want to take it further.
All fonts are large and high contrast.
Yeah, I actually would
Within
love
the
to talk
support
about that too because
conversation,
I'm a
you can
huge
check the log to
Souls
see what you may
fan.
have
Yeah.
missed. And when it
And
comes time
I
to
find that
saving,
topic
you can
very
manually
interesting.
save at
Yeah.
any point, or use the
Yeah.
Yeah, also,
feature.
about this
There are
game,
some
it seems
additional
like
features
you
too.
do not
There is a
pick the
type
color. It
administrator
seems like it
check
changes the
settings,
color
which can be
based
turned off
on
in the preferences menu.
the situation you're in.
Closed
Because
captions
I'm looking at
Mm.
their
The
accessibility
audio is not
menu,
powered
and it
by
didn't have anything to like.
And since
Yeah.
video
Because I think that
versions
this
have
can be
topics
very
such as depression,
problematic
abuse, and neglect,
Mm.
there
for
is also a content
colorblind
warning
people,
list that can
Mhm.
be
depending
Yeah.
on like the different
The
colors
default
that
Videoverse
the
theme
background
black
is.
and white,
Yeah, and in
clear
the
and
save
high
profiles,
contrast.
Oh, okay. No, you can change
Yay!
it. There you go.
Woohoo!
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
They
the
had a
coral
Changed
reef
at any time.
hurts my eyes
And on the
so
pause
much.
button, there is a tip button in the top left
They
corner.
had a
Thank
full
God.
menu
This
for
is a hint if you ever feel stuck.
like sensitive
If there's a
topic
feature
warnings
missing that
and
you'd
stuff
like
like
to
that. Did you
Mm.
see that?
please send me
That
an
was
Yeah, I
a
email
saw
pretty
that.
at
extensive list.
contact@gamesbykimoku.com.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
It's
for
always
watching,
interesting because
and I
it's
hope you
usually
enjoyed
these
the
more
old
graphic
school
novelty
experience
type
of
games that have
Videoverse.
deal with some of the heaviest topics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it absolutely makes
Hello
sense.
everyone, I am
Yeah.
Sightless Combat. First off, thank you so much
Oh,
to the
this is
organisers for inviting me back
he was
here.
at like
It's
Evo or
amazing
something,
to
wasn't
be a
he?
part of this event once
Oh, I don't
again.
know. I don't
Just by
know.
way
He's
of
a completely
self-description,
blind
I'm
fighting
wearing
game
an
player,
RIB
I
Oh,
believe.
that's
free gamer
cool.
shirt
Yeah.
That's cool.
and a cap with my logo on it, which is two swords crossed over an eye, as well as over-ear headphones. And in the background behind me, you can see numerous items of gaming
I think I might be wrong, but I
including
think
what
that's
has
who this
lovingly
is.
been termed as a pop waffle, a display holding various pop vinyl figures from various franchises that I've accumulated, as well as a gold lancer from Gears of War 4, the replica of
So,
that
thoughts on
iconic
pop
weapon.
figures?
So, for those who don't know me, I am an award-winning, multi-credited accessibility consultant and content
Ooh.
creator from the UK, as well as
That's
being
cool.
the accessible gaming officer for RNIB, that is Royal National
Okay,
Institute
I was
of
wrong.
Blind People, the UK-based
Oh, okay.
sight loss charity. And crucially, I am a gamer without sight, having never had any sight whatsoever.
That is all
Now,
really cool,
I'm
though.
here to
Yeah.
talk about, once again, a genre that some might question how you would even make accessible for anyone with no vision to work with, and one that, from what I've heard, a fair number of people are interested in: city builders. Enter
Oh.
Cellular City, a puzzle game about building worlds.
Yeah, that would be hard.
and
I
cities.
Yeah.
have a hard time
When I first
imagining how
Yeah.
you would
heard
do
about
that
this game, it sounded
completely,
really
like, without
intriguing to me,
vision.
not just because of the
Yeah.
wonderfully alliterative name, and
And
the
like
developer
even
is
with
keen to make this
vision,
as accessible
like
as
if you were like
possible. So
really
I would
blind,
highly
you had to like
recommend giving this a
zoom
look
in
if
so
you're even
much.
remotely interested in
Mm.
something
It would
new,
just
and
be
in
like
my case,
I said really
relatively
blind. That's not what I
unfamiliar.
meant to say,
But
but
I'm not
I
going
hope
to
you
try and
guys are
spoil any of
reading
this,
through
because here
reading through
is
the
a
lines.
little trailer
Yeah.
to show you just
But
what this
like
game is all
just
about, as well as, of
having
course,
to zoom
its
in so much
accessibility
just to
features.
build like a
Here
single
is
building,
Cellular
and then just
City
having to
from developer
pan
Callum Deary.
like 30 seconds just to try and figure out where the end of your
This
city
is
is.
Cellular City,
It
Mhm.
must
a
be like
puzzle game about building
really
tiny
annoying.
cities. Cellular
Yeah.
City's primary mechanic
I
is
feel
moves
like
around
any
neighboring
3D
buildings.
space
For example,
thing
you
is
can't have a
very,
steel boundary
very
next to a block of
difficult to deal
flats.
with if
Yeah.
you don't
B is a
have any
flat.
vision.
Yeah.
B3 is empty.
Oh.
B2 is empty.
Oh, they're
Mm.
doing
It's like
a
chess.
grid,
Like a grid
yeah,
base.
grid
Yeah.
On
system.
the other hand, some buildings like each other, like stations.
I'm thinking
and
of all
flats.
of like the
C2 is a station. B2 is empty.
what's the word I'm looking for?
Flats placed in B2.
Like there's so
It
much
has text-to-speech
in
and
terms
audio
of
description levels,
connectivity
with a
between
focus
placing
on
things
accessibility for blind
and,
and
yeah.
and
vision
the
players.
strategy of building
This
your
includes
city.
settings to
You know,
modify
like I'm
text-to-speech
thinking of something like
volume,
City
rate,
Skylines, where like
and
you have to
voice,
route electricity, you have to,
alongside
or you have
keyboard
to
and
figure out
control
where the
support.
power plant's gonna go,
Start
blah, blah,
building.
you know, all of that stuff. Like
Level audio
that's
description
so
starts automatically
complicated.
on level load,
I
but
Yeah.
is only
think
prompted by the player
the
at
best
any time.
solution, like the end game
Describing city.
solution for something like that,
A1
for
is empty.
people who
B1
have
is a rail.
zero
C1 is a
vision,
rail. A 2
would
is a
be
hill.
something
B2
like
is a mine.
into
C2 is a station. A 3
like
is
VR
empty.
before
B3
the
is empty.
hands,
C3
essentially,
is
as
a
if they were
rail.
building a miniature of some
Oh,
sort.
that'd
Because
be
then they can
sick.
feel
A2
it.
is a hill.
They can
Yeah.
feel what they're building, and I think
As are the
that
actions
would
on
get
facing
around it.
buildings.
Because
A
I'm
3
just
is
thinking of like
empty.
people that build miniatures and
Flats
stuff like
placed in
that,
a
Mm-hmm.
field.
and like it's
The
very
player can also
tactile.
prompt
So I think
inspection of
that
buildings to
that
find
would
out
be
more
interesting
about
to
them.
see one day in
A
the
flats
future.
group
Yeah,
lists
that'd be
streets in the
cool.
sky.
I'm imagining like, you know, those old
with
toys that are
neighbors
like the
near and
peg boards that you can like put your hand in and it like it like you can see your hand through it. And
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
take your hand
yeah.
off and it like stays there. What if they had like that kind of like the pins like coming up and it like dynamically changed based on what was in your city?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Have you seen the what's it called? There are some already VR gloves that have resistance in them to simulate you holding things.
Oh, that's cool.
Obviously they're very early on, but it's very interesting to see. Because then, like, if you're holding, I think they were showing it with Half-Life Alyx. If you grab a ball, it's because it's a prototype. It's massive still, like behind the hand and stuff like that. But it holds your hand, not letting it crush the item. It holds it, so it's right in place. Very interesting.
Yeah.
You can use your favorite screen reader in the command
God, it's
line
like
version.
Braille, but for games. Yeah, yeah.
Armory,
It'd be interesting.
26 days left. Early night. 5/6.
Oh,
The muffled
cool.
sound
So
of a
you
night
can
bird
kind
be
of
heard
make
outside.
it like
1.
a
Go up the stairs.
Oregon Trail
2.
style.
Go down the
Yeah,
stairs.
like a text
No time.
game. Interesting.
They
Open the
said
chest.
that you could
No
plug
time.
in your
4.
favorite
Search
text to
this area.
speech
1
like
time. Random.
software
Time
to
search.
it.
that's
Like it's
cool.
open to be
Yeah.
able to use with different software, which is awesome.
Or the customizable
Yeah.
I
text to
agree.
speech in the graphical version.
You're in abandoned tower. Top floor. You're on the top floor.
I like that you can
Stairs
turn
down
off
to
the
the floor.
graphical version because
Summary
yeah,
laid out in all
it makes
vertical layers.
navigating so
It's
much
cold up here.
easier.
Stone
I
walls.
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, I
Press
agree.
to highlight an option. Go down the stairs. No time. Look out over the prairies. 1 time. Search this area.
Also, it's so
Success is
interesting to me that like people that use a
This is
lot of
last
these
option.
voiceovers, they can listen to these audios in like 10 times speed or something and completely understand it.
Right.
Yeah,
It would
it-
break my brain. Like
Same.
I'd have to
Look.
really focus on it.
Keyboard and
I listen to
controller inputs are both
podcasts at
supported,
like
and control view mapping will be added
75%
before
speed.
release.
Oh yeah.
I could never. But I
Yeah.
feel like losing your sight would definitely make it
Difficulty levels
easier
can be adjusted either
to
before
just
or during each
deal
game.
with
You can grant
like
more
text to
in-game
speech
time,
because you would be hearing
conjure
that more and
items,
more. You would get
teleport,
used to it more and
use the
more.
rewind
I imagine over
button
time you'd be
before
like,
release,
okay, let's speed it up. Come
or
on,
any
I need
combination
come on.
of these.
tell me
Yeah.
tell me the information faster.
You can
I'll
try
be honest, I don't know
preview
how
for people
real
on
or
Steam
not
today.
it is, but like I always hear people say
to
like when you
support this
lose one of
project.
your
If you have any
senses, like
questions
the
about
others become
accessibility,
heightened.
Mm.
please reach
Honestly,
out using
it's
my
only ever been
contact
like
info
people saying
at
that, never looked into it. But if that's true, then that would also make sense too, that you'd be able to increase the speed of audio like
Hey
to
everyone,
a
it's
speed
your host Laura here
that is
again.
way higher
I want
than
to take some time today to talk
Right.
about
most
a
people
game
could
that
probably
we
hear.
wanted to include in this year's Accessibility
And it's
Summer
probably just
Showcase,
because
and
you're
timing
forced to
just did
use
not
those
work out
senses
for
more and
putting
more, so
together
you're
a
able to
formal
like
trailer
fine
to
tune
showcase
them.
this game.
It's just like
Mhm.
But I
reading a
still
book
really
for the
think that
first
this game
time. You're
is
gonna
doing some
read it
interesting stuff, and I
slowly,
think it
but
is worth
as you
checking
read
out.
more and more
So I'm
books
going
and
to
you
put together
understand
a
where it's
little
more and
tease
more,
just to
Mhm.
try and
you'll
tell
be
you a
able
little
to
bit
just
about a
breeze
game
right
that
through it.
I wish we
Right.
could have included more formally here today. Periphery Synthetic is a chill,
Ooh.
relaxed, non-violent Metroidvania that takes place in first person
Oh.
and
A
is
Non-violent
first-person
Metroid-
designed
Metroidvania?
to be able to be
And it's
played
non-violent.
without visual input, to be able to be played purely
That's actually
with
funny that
audio cues.
you latched onto the first person because technically Metroid Prime is a
Right,
first
true.
person.
Yeah.
Tasked with surveying a planetary system. in
But
a
this is
first-person
interesting because like
Yeah.
explore by following all sorts of
I've seen this
musical
method
audio
before, I
cues
just
that are
forget
built
where, of
into
like
the soundscape of the game
using
collect
small
materials that allow
dots
you to
to
craft and
cover a
upgrade your
big
movement
landscape.
abilities,
Yeah.
while doing this sort of non-linear exploration.
Dad man, you
of
nailed
the
it. A Metroid Primevania. Yes.
Yeah.
this is are they saying that essentially because it looks
It is a
graphically very simple,
really unique
can they
game, trying some
play
very
with
interesting
audio?
stuff in terms of how it presents its exploration cues.
I'm not sure.
There is a demo available to play on itch.io if you search for Periphery Synthetic EP. The full game will be coming to Steam in summer of 2024. You can find a link to it on the Steam sale page this year that we have for all of the games.
Because this definitely could be an
included in
interesting
the
one for
Accessibility Summer Showcase. I know that the developer of this game was real frustrated to not be able to
Okay, I
have a
think it's
trailer
fine.
ready in
Audio
time.
got really
Submission
garbled for me
deadline.
for a second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my capture card does that every once in a while. I'm sorry. Trying to figure it out. I think it's just like
This gives you a sense
I think it's
software
an
side of
Elgato
things.
thing.
Yeah.
game that I think is worth checking out.
Trash Goblin is a wholesome and cozy shopkeeping game where you uncover and clean trinkets other people have thrown away, then upcycle them to sell to an endless parade of colorful and quirky customers.
Oh,
cool. I like the character design.
Upgrade your shop, buy new and better tools to unlock more activities.
The art style looks really cool.
Yeah. I gotta say, this showcase is really good. I like how they're like pacing things. I really like how they're representing the games and stuff. It's really good.
You're preferring this over the OTK one?
Yes. Just about anything could be better than the way they've presented the games at OTK. But
yeah.
On the bottom right, you can see it's called Trash Goblin Upcycling.
This gentle pace is at the core of what it means to be a true goblin.
I think I missed what the game was called. Is it actually called that or
It's
no?
Trash Goblin.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Okay,
Yeah.
Trash Goblin.
Scrunchy and satisfying
Well,
mechanics
there was no
we've
point in
built.
me pointing that out then.
That's fine.
No, you're good, yeah.
You asked us to add an option to allow players to sponge trinkets clean without holding a button down. So we did.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And you asked for optional auto chisel features for the
But yeah, it
chicken
is too
game
bad
phase, so
though.
we
Like how AK
implemented
was mentioning in terms of like
Thanks so much to
dyslexia,
our
that seems to
community for
still
helping
be
us
a
make
very
the game more
overlooked
accessible
feature.
for everyone.
Yeah.
That I feel like
There are a
that
bunch
one.
of ongoing
I guess
work
it
we've
depends on the
undertaken to
licensing
ensure
cost
you're
of the
able to
font,
enjoy
but
Trash Goblin
that
to the fullest.
fonts tend to be
The
on the
mouse is
easier
used
side of
for
things
every
you can add.
interaction, with optional keyboard
I guess you need to
shortcuts for
resize the
navigation.
font and
And
stuff
we're
like that to make sure it
implementing
fits.
controller
But
Are there
support
like
too.
open dyslexia fonts that are like
Tutorials use
free
button
and?
glyphs for
that's
clarity.
what
I
that
could
game
do
was
some
using.
research.
And the game's
Okay.
default font
Then I
that
think
game
nobody
was
has an
using a
excuse
font.
if
typeface.
That
there's
game
an
was
open
using
version.
a font named Open Dyslexia,
Yeah.
which I'm
The
gonna
player can
guess
skip the
is
text's
a
appearance, and a
free
Yeah,
button
it's
dyslexia
free
text
to
font.
use.
they've
Right.
Yeah,
removed.
Open
Yeah.
Dyslexic is a typeface
And
designed
there are a
against some
selection
common
of
symptoms
audio
of
and volume
dyslexia.
settings to take
It is free to
advantage of,
use.
plus
Gotcha.
text speed
And it uses
settings
the
and more.
SILOFL
But of
license,
course we
giving
want
you
to
freedom
do
to use
even
it for
more.
personal use,
So
business
please
use,
consider
education,
wishlisting the
commercial
game
books,
on
ebook
Steam
readers,
and play the
applications,
demo there
etc.
now.
Okay.
Then come and talk to
So you
us
can
in
use
our
it for whatever
Discord
you want.
and suggest
Yeah.
even
Yeah,
more
so like
improvements as
I
we
feel
go.
like a lot more studios and a
Trash
lot more
Goblin.
games should be using
What
something
kind
like
of
that.
goblin do you want to be?
Nintendo. That
Apparently,
like all
Comic
of their
Sans is a
games.
dyslexia-friendly font.
My name is Rebia, and I'm a
No.
disabled and chronically ill content creator from Norway, and also a co-host
Comic Sans,
of
not
podcast
free though. It's
Control
owned by
on
Microsoft.
Access
Right.
together with
Yeah.
Laura. I'm a white woman in my 30s with dark red hair.
Also, that
wearing a
Trash
yellow
Goblin
flowy shirt
game,
sitting in my
I'm
game.
definitely putting it on
Last
my
year,
wish list
White
just
Thorn
because it's so
Games brought
cute.
us Botany
And I
Yeah.
love cleaning
A
games.
It looks
game where you
good.
play as Arabella, retired botanist living
Also,
in
I'm
the
liking that
19th
she
century.
is
In this game,
describing
you work
herself
toward
for those
finishing
who
a
can't.
botanical
Yeah.
research book.
Yeah,
That
I
was
think
cool.
everyone that's
Growing
been appearing
fascinating
on
plants, looking
screen
for
that wasn't
mysterious
a
clues, and
guest
solving cozy puzzles.
has
But
been
not
doing
only
that.
is this
Mhm.
game a wonderful little adventure,
That's
it's
I'm a
cool.
little bit
also
thrown off by
accessible
the
for me.
contrast.
With a focus on cognitive
Yeah, the contrast is a little bit
accessibility
off,
through
but
good information in the options, a well-made
Maybe
journal
it's an
system, and a
accessibility thing.
bunch
I
of ways to
wouldn't
reduce
know,
motion
but
sickness, all the way to more motor accessibility with toggle,
it's like her
run, and
hair is
zoom.
photoshopped
This
in.
game feels like it was made for me. So this is why I'm so happy to see that White Thorn Games are back this year, and I can't wait to see what they have to show us all.
Are you ready to jump into action as a cute slime? Slime Heroes.
I think this was shown off at Gorilla yesterday as well.
Yeah, I feel like if you're watching all of the presentations, you're gonna see a lot of repeats.
Yeah.
Enemies and bosses have
Sadly, it's the nature of.
We're getting more like in-depth details though.
Oh
with
yeah,
this,
absolutely.
Which I
It's definitely
appreciate.
different.
Yeah.
It's definitely different. Which is kind of nice too, because then you get a chance to talk about different aspects of it.
Right.
On your preferences. There is also the ability to toggle on double jump for more control and distance in platforming sections.
I love being able to toggle on double jump.
Yeah.
More time than you normally would.
Those are some of my favorite accessibility features. The ones that aren't just like adding a filter or something, but it's something that legitimately changes the gameplay for those who who need some sort of accessibility.
To allow you to see the exact
And again, I love the white outlines.
enabling you to be sure all of your attacks land.
They show the hitboxes. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Ooh.
This is just a sample of
And
the
I
things
like
come
that
from
there's
slime
automatic targeting if you turn it on.
In Magical Delicacy, you play as Flora, a young witch who's just moved to the harbor town.
Man,
of
I
Rock
love
to grow her
pixel art.
magical abilities.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's the best.
New friends, discovering
I feel
I
like
feel like we've
pixel
gone to a
art-
point where it's so artistic and beautiful. Sorry,
Yeah.
what was that, AKO?
I feel like pixel art is a lot. Sometimes I feel like it's a bit harder than
that disables
to make them like
platforms that would otherwise
regular
require
art
precise timing
as someone
or
who
quick movements
can't
during
do
puzzle
either,
or
just
platforming
because
areas.
like you have to get the
To
shapes
improve
just
visibility,
right,
there are also
and like
several
one
high
pixel
contrast
can literally
options.
make
You can
or
highlight
break
Flora's
something, you
outline,
know?
so she'll always stand
Yeah.
out against her background.
Yeah, and
Additionally,
I can definitely
you can
see
darken
that
the
with like
background
in
so that the
art, as
contrast
again,
becomes
also
more
someone who
noticeable.
doesn't do any art.
Beyond that,
Yeah,
Like
same.
you can do strokes and stuff like that, where
Thus,
this is very
there are
much
even
placing
more
pixel by
accessibility
pixel many
options.
times.
You
Right.
can
Yeah.
disable any moving
And
dialogue
sometimes you even
effects,
have to like scrap an entire head because it's
autoplay
just like
dialogue,
a pixel off, and then
Mhm.
because it's a pixel off,
and
you
you
have
can
to
change the
basically
game's
rework
text
the
to a more
entire
legible
face.
font.
Finding the exact level of detail that you want to include without it being messy is always such like, I feel like a challenge with pixel art, that so many artists are so good at representing like a lot of detail but still keeping it simple enough to where it's not like a mess, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel too, if you get too detailed, then it ends up looking and becoming closer to just,
I'm Zoe Reyes, the usability
you know,
and
hand-drawn
accessibility
art
specialist
rather
at
than
California
pixel art.
Yeah.
I'm a woman
Both
with
are
blue hair just
absolutely
past shoulder length, and
crazy
a
to
light
make,
pink
though.
t-shirt
Don't get me
and
wrong.
glasses.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Making your games more accessible is a great goal to have, but sometimes it can feel daunting.
Oh, I see a Diva poster in the back.
I see a
I've
Pomni
got a
plush.
starter kit of some
Oh yeah, I
features
do see a
that
Pomni.
And a Jedi Fallen Order poster. Hell yeah. Let's go.
Yeah, and there's a Pride
take a look at
Lego
developer
thing.
tools or options.
Oh, that's cool.
A lot of times they can be great accessibility options. Commands that reset the
Ooh,
player,
this
or give
gives
the player increased health or stamina, or more time
Oh.
dedicated
What
to
is
puzzles.
it?
Oh, this
are
is
all
cool.
great ways to
Yeah.
Is it
accommodate
Donkey
players who
Kong
have reduced
Jr.?
reaction time. By looking
Like
at
the
the way you
original
use your tools to test the game
Mario
yourself,
game,
you can come
where
up
I
with
was
ways
thinking-
where
to
there's
help
the
your
rolling
players.
barrels.
Keep contrasting.
I think that's just
This
Donkey
may sound
Kong with
rather
the
simple, but
rolling
Yeah,
barrel.
Donkey
contrast
Kong.
of the player's view is
But yeah, that made me
difference
think
in
of
how the game play out for someone with low vision
one, because it
or
was red and
otherwise.
black. It made me think
Double
of
check your inputs.
Virtual Boy,
Things like
but it also made me
buttons
think
and button
of
mods can feel limiting for the
VVVVVV.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
Offering alternatives such as eliminating the need for quick button presses or the
I need
ability
to remind
toggle
myself what
sustained button press
VVVVVV
is
is.
always a great idea.
It's
And
like a
again,
platformer
try
with a lot of
including input
spikes.
remapping.
A
Including
lot of.
subtext
Maybe
is
that's why they
another great
said
way to make your game more inclusive,
you can
especially
remove
when
the
it has
spikes.
Yeah,
on
on
this
spikes on and
a
off
lot of
mode,
times
yeah.
you already have a script ready to go,
Oh yeah,
too.
look, they're using
You
Open
can go a
Dyslexic.
step further and
This
add
needs to,
subtitles
okay,
for
okay.
non-verbal
Open
Nice.
dyslexic needs to be a common
environmental sounds or sounds that guide hearing players.
accessibility feature across all games,
Sometimes
in my
these
opinion.
Yeah, I
options
agree.
aren't clear.
I know
Instances
that
where
in
things
terms
are
of
conveyed
ADHD,
by
it's not
color only
dyslexia,
or
but
sound
they're
alone
like
are
ADHD
often
people
very
can also have
inaccessible.
difficulty
Try
reading and like,
conveying information
especially
in
with
multiple
lines
ways
and
you can.
words and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
With those tips help you
And
get
that
started,
uses a
keep in
different
mind
font
this is
type as
not
well
an
that helps
exhaustive
with
Oh,
that.
okay.
And
There,
I would
Good
like
news
to
is
see
that
that
there are
also be
loads of
used.
resources
Okay.
online
I've
from this
never heard of
amazing
that before. That
community.
might help a lot
I recommend
because
checking out
I
the game's
always skip
accessibility
lines.
guidelines website,
And I'll
Yeah,
like
so
Oh, yeah.
merge
Xbox
two words
accessibility
together
guidelines, and the
just
yeah, so
because my
that
brain
font
is
helps.
going
accessibility
faster
SIG
than
YouTube.
my eyes. And so I'm
Top
Let me
seeing
see
like
if I can
two
find a
pieces
name.
who are working
in
Is that like a
different
line
to make
spacing
games
thing,
more
Rods?
accessible is
No,
also
it's
one
the
of the
font
greatest
itself, and
resources.
Really?
the way that it's
Our
formatted.
greatest strength
Essentially, what it
is
does
sharing the
is
knowledge
it
we gain with each other.
boldens
Because
with this
together,
specific
we can
font.
make
It
video
boldens
games an
half of
even
the
more
word,
inclusive space.
and for some reason
Oh.
I don't understand.
Thank you.
But it makes it so, and as someone who has this, it makes it so you don't confuse the lines and the letters and the words. And
Oh.
I found I was able to read so much faster.
Gotcha.
With it.
pretty much my whole life. And
I'll have
that
to
started
look
getting
at it
difficult about 10
because
years
I have
ago. And this
ADHD.
is the
So
time before
if
accessibility
this
was
helps
more
me,
widely
that'd be a
implemented.
game
So I kind of
changer.
felt like I wasn't going to be able to game again anymore or any longer in the future as well. But now, since accessibility is more widely implemented and there are many more tools that you could use now, I am now able to play more games than I was before my physical difficulty started. So accessibility is something that's quite important to me, and it's really great to see that it's being more widely implemented and more people are starting to learn about it.
Hey everyone.
I
I'm
appreciate
Kevin
them
from
showing
Mandible
us
Entertainment, and today
people that
we're gonna
like
talk about some of the
very
accessibility features
greatly
in Rainbow
like
Billy and the Curse
utilize
of the
these
Leviathan.
features and
Let's
like how
jump
important
right
it
in.
is to them.
I
You've been asked
agree.
how we made the game accessible
Yeah.
for people with
color blindness.
Because sometimes people
Luckily,
don't
technical director
connect
Alexis
the fact
is
that
actually
there
colorblind himself,
are people
so
that
the game about
require
recoloring
these
the
things.
world
It's
of
not just
imagination
it's not
is
an
important to
option
get
for
this
them.
one
It's
right.
a requirement.
That's why
So
you always see symbols
it's really
associated
cool
with
to see.
colors. The 12 colors used to represent different emotions have all been given a symbol.
By the
which
way,
is
I
always
found what
present
it
throughout the
is.
game.
I guess it's sadly
Items that you can interact with in the game
copyrighted
are
thing,
always
so it's
entered
not
Oh,
something
okay.
free.
It's not open.
It's called
Yeah.
bionic reading.
Okay.
We used forced perspectives, which makes it easier to play.
But
with
yeah,
a
I
single
found it
joystick.
to work very well.
The
Yeah.
camera also rotates automatically to help with puzzles.
I
and
wonder if
secrets.
it's possible to create like
There's a lot to explore in Rainbow Billy.
a
anyone to feel lost.
mechanic in the
That's
game
why
that
whenever
allows you
board
to
friendship,
import
the
your
camera will
own
always point to
bot
your current objective
fonts.
seamlessly.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Because
also
that
find
might
your current
fix it
objective
if
under
there's someone
compass
who
and map that
uses
you
a
can
specific
access at
font
any
a
time.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
There
that
is
might
no
be
time
cool.
limit or fail state in Rainbow Billy.
Yeah.
This is a
This is called Rainbow Billy, April.
of being put on the
And I
spot
think
or
we
failing
they've
tasks
shown this
because you didn't
before. They've
react
shown
in time.
Rainbow Billy before, but not in an accessibility way. But I really like the art style.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love a
a-
game that you can just color the world.
Lowering the
Yeah,
difficulty doesn't
absolutely.
change your strategy.
And I also really like whenever games mix 2D and 3D art.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a few options to tweak.
I
how
agree.
dialogue is
I also
displayed.
just like in
We've
like
made
TV
dialogue
shows as
fun to
well.
read with a lot of animations and effects. However, we know this can make the text harder to read for some people, so we've implemented
Open
the
Dyslexic.
I'm
Hey,
very
look at
happy
that.
to be seeing that coming up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like they should also
You can also
turn
change the
off
speed
the
at which dialogue
rainbow
is displayed.
colors, like turn on like open
Yeah,
dyslexic and like open dyslexic colorless,
Mm.
just because, especially when you saw like the yellow
And
go
also
through, is
change the
very
character
hard to
voices
read.
if you prefer
Yeah.
more retro
Like see like
sounds,
right
or
there, like you
none
can
at
see
all.
World of Imaginations in the reds and the blues, but once it goes to the greens and yellows, it's very
Rainbow
hard to
Billy,
read.
The Curse of the Leviathan has so much more to offer. If you'd like to give it a try, head over to our Steam page and get ready to recolor the world. Thank you for your time and have a great day.
I know it's not like a big issue if you like wait around for a little bit just to see the entire word, but I feel like when you're a streamer and you're trying to like read the dialogue as
everyone, quick
quickly as
update here
possible
from
so you can
Laura.
put your own input,
The folks behind
it's
Rainbow
hard to
Billy,
like
The Curse of the Leviathan
be like,
have
oh wait,
actually
hold
given us
on,
some
give me a
Steam
second, I
codes
need
for
to
the
see
game to
what
give
this
away
word
during
says, you
today's
know?
Right.
Accessibility Summer Showcase.
Yeah, I feel like,
If you
especially
would
for
like to be entered
colorblindness,
into a
maybe they
random draw to
will
win
have a
one of
hard
5
time in
copies of
general
Rainbow
just reading
Billy,
that.
The Curse of the Leviathan.
Oh, Rainbow
You can
Billy
head over
QR
to
code.
@WeAreManavoid
Oh.
on Twitter and find the competition tweet.
Don't
Five
let us
people
cover it.
will
Don't
win
let us
Steam
cover
codes
it.
for the game by responding
I think you have to go
the
to a specific
up
tweet.
on Manavoid's
Oh, okay.
Twitter. You can enter between now and Sunday, June 9th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So you have about 2 days to respond to their tweet to get put in for a random drawing to maybe win a copy of Rainbow Billy, The Curse of the Leviathan.
Nice.
Enjoy. Fingers crossed that you
I
win.
feel like
Let's
Rainbow
get back
Billy
to more
though.
games.
Not very good game for colorblindness because it's all
Yeah.
about color.
Yeah.
Something I didn't like about that specific part is that there was nothing like on the screen besides like the YouTube given text captions. That's the word I was looking for. Besides the captions, you could only hear what she was saying in the link instead of like putting it up on the screen, like how earlier she did that with the Steam store page. She didn't do that with the Twitter.
For people with colorblindness, as well as having text for everything.
Also, this is an interesting art style.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cat freaked me out.
It's like a very weird. I don't know. It feels almost like some PC games. Like I'm thinking old Fallout 1 and 2, like
Yeah.
art style with the characters. in
Everyone
terms
looks
of, like,
very
majority of the game
goofy.
playable with.
Yeah.
But I think they're aliens, so that's
Similarly,
okay.
We added an auto run feature, which reduces the number of buttons that need to be pressed.
Love it.
Additionally, we added input sensitivity controls so that all players can fine-tune the game to their liking.
What are we playing as here?
I think that was the costume.
Chips.
We felt it was a good idea.
Oh my god, look at that mustache.
Yeah, I like.
Wait, is that
We know
a
it's not
zipper?
well-loved feature,
I think
Yeah.
on his
but if it
forehead,
helps
yeah.
someone in the slightest, it's
I'm
there.
gonna guess that you can customize your character.
We also added the ability
Yeah.
to switch controls on demand.
I wonder if
This
we're
means that
like
if you're playing
trying
with
to
a mouse and
sneak
keyboard,
in.
You can switch to an Xbox controller at
Because
any
there's
time.
not a lot of details as
As
to
a
like
person with a
what
physical
the
disability,
game is, unless
I
I
know it's handy
missed
to have
it.
as many inputs available to adjust.
But
I think we
we're,
might have
like-
missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These
We might have
features are
talked
currently
over it.
available in our demo, which can be found on
Oh,
Xbox,
maybe we're the
PlayStation, and
cat
Steam.
and we're dressing up
If you think
as
that Facebook could benefit from
people
further
in
improvement,
costumes
please
to not get
contact us
caught.
at
That's what
I
I
think
I
that's
think
what's
you're
going
right.
on.
Yeah.
Or not,
Thank you
because
from
there's the
everyone
cat right
at
there.
Recombobulator Games.
We at Paint Bucket Games believe that everyone should have the opportunity to enjoy the games we create, regardless of ability. We are currently developing The Darkest Files, a historical investigation and courtroom game based on true crimes.
Ooh.
We want our games to be inclusive and welcoming to all players, which is why we've implemented several accessibility features. For one, players can choose their own difficulty and even customize it further to match their needs.
Nice.
The Darkest Files also features mouse-only gameplay. This allows players to play the game just by clicking with one hand, making it accessible to those who use adaptive controllers as well. In addition to
I know Mars was mentioning this in the other presentation, but I also really love whenever the art style really changes how things look, because I feel like this could look like a very normal game with just like normal colored assets, but like just a change like this is very interesting to see.
While investigating.
Yeah,
we are
I
also
agree.
very mindful of the readability of our fonts and texts and always offer a transcription.
Love it. Can we
For
change
dialogues, there
the
are real-time subtitles available.
the text though? I don't know
Right.
if the
We
text
are
is
testers with impairments and want to continue to learn
like
about
okay
accessibility.
for dyslexic people or not, because I'm not
Hi everyone,
dyslexic.
Laura here again. Thank you so much
So,
for tuning into this
I
year's
wouldn't know, but-
Accessibility Summer Showcase.
Yeah, they
As a
didn't show
reminder,
too much in
we
terms of
have a
like
Steam sale page
Yeah.
for this
accessibility
year's
as
Summer
compared to
Showcase.
some of the other
So you
ones.
can find
Yeah.
most of this year's games all in one place on Steam if any of them caught your interest. We've got one final trailer for you before we wrap up. But before that, I want to make a
Silksong.
quick announcement. The Accessibility Summer Showcase is a bit of a passion
Bloodborne.
project, and it's something that I find a lot of joy in producing. As such, I'd like to try expanding it just a little. In December of 2024, I'm going to attempt to publish the Accessibility Winter Showcase. It'll be just like the Summer
Ooh.
Showcase, just happening at the other end of the year. The hope is that we can provide a spotlight for accessible video games whose announcement windows might not line up well with our usual summer event. If you're a developer who would be interested in featuring in the Accessibility Winter Showcase, email laurakbuzzofficial@gmail.com and we can
Ooh.
discuss specifics.
Nice.
More official information will be made available in the coming weeks. There's no guarantee that the Accessibility Winter Showcase will return in future years, but I'd like to give it a go and see if it's something that I can publish sustainably. Thank you all again for watching. Please enjoy our last trailer, and I hope you have an accessible day.
They have a one more thing.
Hey
One
everyone,
more thing.
I'm Darren,
More
developer
thing.
of Danfolk.
It's Silksong, I knew it.
To the world. I designed Dawnfolk to be the perfect entryway into the city builder strategy game genre.
Also, I put
It's a
the
simple
link
game
for the
without
free
complex menus to
Rainbow Billy
navigate
Steam
or
key
endless
thing
tutorials.
in the
Oh,
chat.
nice.
The unique
Thank
element
you.
of Dawnfolk is that you can collect resources by playing small, exciting minigames. But one day, a player contacted me and told me he could not enjoy the game because those minigames required too much button mashing.
That is a very
That made me so sad
good solution
that
for
I
the
quickly
technology we
updated the
have
demo
nowadays,
within
though.
the hour
Making
with a
city
button
builders
to
and things like
disable
that
the
be on a
minigames.
grid
It was very
absolutely
grateful,
helps a lot
and
with
watching him play afterwards
anyone who
really motivated
may be
me to
visually
add
impaired
more
or
accessibility
anything like that.
features.
Yeah,
Unlike
and I
most
just
strategy
like
games,
grids in general.
Dawnfolk is completely
It
playable
just feels a
with
lot
any
neater.
controller you like. You can also activate haptic
That is how I
feedback
build
to
my
better
cities
understand
usually.
what's
I just
happening
made
in the game.
them all grid
Dawnfolk
based.
is also a narrative
Yeah.
game where you can reshape the story.
So
The
I do
text is
appreciate
big,
it.
but you can change that 8-bit pixel font to a more readable one. You can also
Love
open the
it.
journal to read previous dialogue entries in case you need a little reminder.
Yeah, some pixel art fonts
There
are
only
very
a few
hard to
key
read.
information on the screen at any
Yeah.
time, and everything is big enough to make sure you can easily read it. The game uses signs, shapes, and high contrast colors, so you can play it whatever type of color blindness you might have. You can also activate a narrator that's gonna read everything for you.
Meadow, forest, plain, tents, wheat field. Awesome, the wheat field produces food every day.
There are tons of audio cues, but you can also perfectly play the game without any sound. Dawnfolk plays in real time. However, no worries. You can
It is
pause
very
time
interesting to see
whenever
all
you
the
want.
different implementations that
The game
people
can be
have
played with
Yeah.
different levels of
for
difficulty,
the same
and you
features,
can
and that's
save
where what you were
anytime,
saying,
so don't
demo, of
worry
like having a
about making a
standardized
mistake.
kind
If
of
you're
way of
stuck,
doing it
Viewer
would be
Yeah.
really
will
helpful.
always come back to you with some advice.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
think
jump scares in the game,
standardization in terms
you
of
do have a few
features, but then in
cliches and
terms of
flashes
modification
that
of
you
those
can disable.
features to fit your
The game is still
specific
developing,
Absolutely.
but be sure
needs
to
would
add
be
more
would be
accessibility
nice. Yeah.
features in the future.
I agree.
Play the demo on Steam and let me know what you think. Have fun.
If you're watching on Twitch, stay tuned
Oh.
for a live stream showcasing
We are
demos
not.
for Fishbowl,
We're not. Goodbye.
Magical Delicacy,
Yeah, bye.
Cellular City, Periphery Synthetic, and Trash Goblin.
Oh, cool. They're going to show they're going to show a lot of the games there.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it's done.
Yeah,
Wait,
that's it.
Was that it?
I think that's it. It just went to a black screen, so that's what I was guessing.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
a black screen.
So, yeah, wow, that was a phenomenal showcase. I didn't have too many expectations, but I mean, I think they knocked it out of the park.
I liked it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Any standout games that like you want to add to your wish list or anything from this?
Too many.
Too many, yeah. I can see that.
There's a lot of cool games on here. Like, again, I'm going back to Trash Goblin just because
Mhm.
I like a lot of cleaning simulators. Like, I have House Flipper on my computer and I have a
Mhm.
bunch of DLCs from that.
Mhm.
And it's just, I find the games like really fun just being able to do like tiny tasks and get rewarded for it.
Mhm.
It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think for me, the one that caught my eye the most was the Rainbow Billy
Yeah.
game. Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
interested in that. I really like the art style and the palette and everything there. It looked very
Same.
interesting to me, so I'm probably gonna go wish list that one. I really liked it.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, that
not a
one was
lot.
really cool.
Yeah, there's not a lot of games where like, you know, you have a colorless world and you're trying to bring color back into it. Like, there's a couple that I can think of, which is the Epic Mickey series,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's also De Blob,
Oh, I
which
haven't
is a
seen that
pretty
one
old
before.
game.
Yeah.
The Blob. Oh yeah, that was on the Wii, right?
Yeah,
Originally.
the Wii
Mm.
and on Xbox 2, I believe,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
as
then
in
later.
TOO.
Mhm.
But they had they had two games, and basically the whole premise was there was this evil, oily techie corporation draining color everywhere, and then you're the blob and you're bringing color back.
Yeah.
And it had a lot of really fun mechanics where like you can change into different colors.
Mhm.
It was just overall a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think another one that stood out to me was the first person Metroidvania game.
Yeah.
Periphery Synthetic.
Yeah, it just looked so interesting to me, the way that they're rendering the world and like
Yes.
how you're going. I don't know. It's just it's so different than what I'm used to in video games. You know.
No,
It
that
just
was
caught my
one that-
eye. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was one that I was going to mention as catching my eye. And honestly, probably more for curiosity, just to see what do you do? How do you
Right.
What is the objective? What
Right.
things do you, because it seemed very cryptic, I guess, in the way that it was, but in a way that made me curious to learn more.
Yeah, and I don't know. They mentioned that they didn't have time to like make a trailer, so I wonder if it's still kind of down in the weeds of development of figuring those things out. But like,
yeah,
the way that visually it looks, it's very eye catching for me. So yeah,
Yeah.
looking,
No, I agree.
Looking to hear more from that.
Yeah,
Two
I think
other-
another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I think another really cool game was the Cellular City one, where you needed absolutely no sight, and it gave like the A1 forest, B2. Sorry, I can't even remember things.
There's like a train.
you're right,
There's
you're
like a
right.
train
But yeah,
station and stuff
train
like that.
station.
Yeah.
Yeah, roads. I think it wasn't really something that I thought could have been possible. Like, it's something that like in hindsight could be like, yeah, that totally makes sense. But in like just generally, I don't really think about like, oh yeah, people can play games if they can't see,
Mhm.
because it's like for the most
This
part
is-
the industry doesn't the game industry in general just doesn't have compatibility with people who can't see anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's just really nice to have games where you can just close your eyes or just have no eyes and play.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Go ahead.
yeah, that was one thing that when we were seeing the final game they were showing, I feel like for it being grid-based and stuff like that, I thought that maybe the narrated way that they were going to do was also going to have coordinates like Cellular City had, but it didn't. And that was why I brought up like maybe having like a standardized way of doing it that is kind of like the most helpful way would have been cool because I feel
Yeah.
like it was a bit of a missed opportunity there.
I feel like the
Yeah.
issue with that is because of the fact that the game starts in the middle, you would have to reprogram it every time you move. So then now you have a new area that becomes the new A1, and then you have a new area that becomes the new D5, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's like it really shifts a lot. I think the way that Cellular City works, I think it works from a corner and then going out from there in a diagonal pattern downwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like it's a set tile. It's not growing like you said. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Right.
And I feel like that would be a big issue for the last game because of the fact that it's right in the center. It just it's always going to be growing, or it's going to have a set area to stop growing at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reggie in the chat brought up Elsie, and this definitely looks like a game that's like ready to come out now. That seems like it's got a lot of accessibility features like built in and ready to go. And this looks like right up my alley as well. I don't know why it's not playing, but
it's very Mega Man like, which
Yeah.
I really like with a lot of its
100%.
bosses and things like that, which is
Yeah.
really cool to see. That was another one I was going to mention. Elsie looks very fun.
Yeah.
It looks like a blast and beautiful art style, and the fact that it has so many accessibility features is really cool.
Yeah. I like that you can also turn on outlines not only for your player character but also for your enemies.
Yeah.
I wonder if there would be a way to turn on like if you have the settings to be like your character is completely white outlined. The enemies also have a white outline, you know?
They did show that you could have different colors for enemies and for player and stuff like that.
You could like select the color that you
there it
wanted,
is.
right?
I saw it very briefly.
So they can be
there.
separate. So here she's white, the character's white, they're white, and the enemies are green.
And the items are yellow, it looks like.
And the items are yellow,
yeah.
I love that kind of customizability.
Yeah, same.
Customizable? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Elsie seems
issues.
very polished in terms of its accessibility features, which is really cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one that I saw that I thought was very interesting, especially because of the art style, is Magical Delicacy. I really liked it.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it here.
I thought that it was very fun. It made me very intrigued. I feel like I'm always curious about games that look like this. And I still haven't found one that honestly catches me and keeps me there, but like I'm always interested in games that look and feel like this.
Yeah, it's got kind of a, I don't know if I want to say, no, I think I'd be wrong in saying what I was going to say. I don't think I've played many games like this, Rod. Like, do you have examples of some other ones like this that that like catch you?
I think one that is going to be kind of similar is Spiritfarer. This has some Spiritfarer, which is where you're kind of taking the spirits from life to death, but you're building your own boat to like keep the spirits in there and stuff like. So there's some management, which seems like there's planting in Magical Delicacy here, and so I think that there's some of that. There's another game that was free on PlayStation a while back that also had some, I forget what the name of it is, but it's like a person that is human going into a world of monsters and stuff like that. But it had a similar kind of way that it works to this.
Gotcha. So I want to highlight something in chat really quick that Seraphian brought up. Is it looks like there's a documentary about gaming and accessibility, which will be / is available on Netflix, called Ibelin, IBELIN. And it really opened up his eyes to how important accessibility is and just how much people with disabilities are capable of when given the right tools. So awesome. I will definitely be checking that out. Thank you, Sarah, for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, Richard brought up the lack of zoomies related games was saddening. I feel like Elsie was that, but I feel like many times too, a lot of games that are very hyper fast and stuff like that tend to be less accessible because of their speed too.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe there was some of that contributed to not seeing some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have no issue with like there are certain games that like no matter what you do, it's not going to be accessible for everyone, and I think that's fine as long as you make it like as accessible as possible without changing your game into something completely different. You know?
Yeah, I
Just
think
like
that,
how there's movies that are like some people like those movies, some people don't like those movies, some people have like a specific like a very awful fear of like spiders, and there's a movie that's full of spiders, and that person
man,
who
I could-
hates spiders absolutely
I might be able
cannot
to
watch
use this
that
as a
movie.
launching
It doesn't mean that they
topic.
should change the movie to
I
not
know what
having
you're gonna say.
spiders, but just
Right.
it's like there are games that it's fine if they aren't completely accessible to everyone, as long as they're somewhat accessible, or as long as they're accessible to some people.
Right.
So demo.
So as a person who is arachnophobic, I could kind of use this as a launching point into a topic that I have some strong feelings about, but I also want to be cognizant of the opinions of other people. So I've been doing a From Software marathon for the better part of all of this year so far. And there are, I think they've, first I want to say, I think they've gotten better over time, right? I think Elden Ring is way more accessible than something like Dark Souls 1, for example. Man, Miyazaki, please stop putting freaking spiders in your games, because I am freaking terrified every time I come to an area that has spiders. It's insane. An arachnophobia mode would be awesome for a lot of games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's a very personalized thing that I know that it doesn't make sense to do it for everybody, but like for me personally, it'd be awesome if they had that. But go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I do really like, as a quick example of something that works really, I thought was funny and worked really well, is how what was the name of the game? Everyone's was playing it. The one that you go in space and you get your great asset.
Lethal Company?
Lethal Company, yes. How they replaced the spiders with the word spider.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, one of them, Grounded, has an arachnophobia mode.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Is like kind of there, but it's still a little bit terrifying because they still use like kind of the shapes that look like it's like two balls with like little eyes or something like that, and it's still I think it's not just like the representation of the like the geometry of the spider, but the way they move. For some reason, the way that spiders move very much like trigger that feeling of fear for me, and maybe that's the reason why it is. I think Hogwarts Legacy also has an arachnophobia mode. I'd just love to see more arachnophobia modes for me personally.
No, for sure. But I do feel like that one for a lot of, depending on what you do, like the example you brought with Grounded, I think that is very much more like a more complicated implementation that would definitely take more time. And I think that not everyone would want to, and again, I'm not trying to excuse not having that. I'm just like trying to think from a game development standpoint. Like the way Lethal Company did it. Also, it's kind of comedic, may not work with the tone of certain games, especially like something like Elden Ring.
Yeah, From Software, like I wouldn't want From Software to just replace the spiders with the word spider. Right. Like that does not fit in with their world building. It doesn't make sense. Like I understand that completely, 100%.
Yeah, and I just think it's interesting these topics as people become more aware of them, game developers become more aware of them. And like you said, the way even in the arachnophobia mode in Grounded still gives you some of that feeling. So like it seems like they may have missed the point a little bit. It's very interesting to think about how what the most effective for people who have the whatever phobia they're trying to prevent, and from a development standpoint, like where are we going to find places again? Like you said, I think it would be cool. Those are the places where it would be cool to have like a commission or something of people who that's what they study, that's what they're looking into to inform then the developers.
Right. Yep. I 100% agree with you. And I think in terms of like a solution for something like a From Software game that has, they have an artistic intent that shouldn't be, well, not shouldn't be, but like it ideally wouldn't be infringed upon, right? Like they are an artist creating a work of art. Like I can understand that. And all games are like that. But when you're going for like a very serious, like bring the player into this headspace and like, you are this character, you are in this world. We don't want to like degrade the storytelling or the artistic intent of this world for something like that. For me, just a splash screen of like, hey, this game has spiders in it. Just heads up, like prepare yourself. Like as long as I'm prepared mentally, that can help a lot.
Oh yeah.
Instead of like I walk into an area and a spider drops on me and jump scares me, right? Like that's a huge difference.
Like there are no spiders here. Now spiders.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to dominate the conversation on just From Software and be like harping on them or anything, but like I'm also a strong contender that I think those games deserve a difficulty slider or some kind of accessibility feature to make the game a little bit easier for you, or maybe like a more advanced tutorial or something to like really walk you through the systems, because they're so deep and interconnected, and like there's entire wikis devoted to like breaking down how this stuff works, and it'd be really nice to have those kinds of features like in the game, right? So
yeah, and they are absolutely like intentionally obtuse, which can be very problematic for a lot of people. And like you were saying before, I can and by the way, I think that as a quick aside, I think that us talking a lot about From Software is because I think they are probably the strongest and biggest example of not doing things for accessibility
intentionally, right? Like they intentionally do not include those things.
And I feel like it is a problem in the sense that they have become so big. They have become such an influence on the industry. So a lot of people, like we saw in the presentation, are simply not able to play their games. It's not only because they don't have the options. It's very much not designed for a lot of people. And like you said, there is a component of that is the artistic integrity of things like that. And I think that is honestly a very valid and fair like thing to say, but I think that that's why we call it option, right? You're not necessarily forcing it upon people.
Right.
I don't think that degrades the experience of someone who, is able to see, is able to play it normally or whatever, however you they want you to play it. But I think that's also a place where I think it would be interesting to make accessibility options that are specifically tailored for people with different sorts of limitations or other things that they might have, because I think if the point of the gameplay is for it to be challenging, I think obviously this would be probably a massive undertaking, but I think it would be so interesting to add challenge in different ways that are accessible. So
Okay.
because I can see it be something like, oh, just make it easy and then it makes it more accessible, which it does for a lot of people. But I would like to see a way that it's easier in the ways that matter to people. And again, I know that this would need to be multiple different ways because multiple different types of limitations, but maintains the challenge in ways that it can still get across that feeling that people get with a lot of these games,
right?
Where and expanding that from Dark Souls and from Soft, that going along with every game that needs accessibility. I think that many times accessibility misses the core of makes it so the people that need to use them missed certain parts of the core of the feeling of the experience of the game. So to find ways that the experience stays intact, but people that need those features still are able to play it, I think that that is hopefully a place we can get to at some point.
Yeah, I know one person brought up to me, I was talking about accessibility at one point on stream, and somebody brought up like something like Celeste, right? Like the whole point of, so not the whole point of Celeste, but like one aspect that they want to drill into you is like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to die. Just get back up, try it again, and you'll eventually make it. Like everybody who plays Celeste, like you'll eventually make it through as long as you put enough time into it, right? But the one thing for me about that, and I think somebody said like, are you really like experiencing Celeste if they have like an easy mode? And like for me, I think yes, you do, because everybody's level of difficulty, like something that's difficult for somebody is a spectrum, right? Like
exactly, yeah.
Celeste could be super easy for some people that are like very into platformers that have like have precision timing. They might not find Celeste very difficult, right? But for somebody who has a visual impairment or a motor impairment or something like that, Celeste becomes a game that you physically are not able to complete. You're not able to play it, right? Even like the first couple of jumps, like is not possible, right? And so having, like you said, a level of difficulty or, custom options that still provide you with that core experience of what that game is trying to deliver to you in terms of story or in terms of challenging yourself, things like that. Like that's still achievable in my opinion with more accessibility options. Yeah. So
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I agree with you. Yeah.
I think a lot of games, I won't say a lot of games nowadays, but a lot of games in the past, I feel like they add in accessibility features for the sakes of having it be more accessible and not for the sake of it actually being fun for accessible or people who need that accessibility. Like basically being like, you want a colorblind mode? Fine, here's your colorblind mode, but it's like, but those people, there's a couple of spots where you're like, but this doesn't help colorblind people. It could actually make things worse. I said this before in like prior to the showcase, but there's a game that I'm currently playing called Potion Punch, and the main mechanics is that you have these primary colored potions that you then mix into secondary and tertiary colors. And with the colorblind mode, they add patterns to it. So if you mix like the red and the orange, it'll mix those two patterns together so you'll have like the dots and the stripes. But then there's the issue of, well, you also have this heart potion that's also red, and the accessibility features aren't applicable to that potion. So what you have is if for a non-colorblind person, they can see very easily, okay, here is a red potion that requires a heart in it, and the heart has like a very light white outline. But then when you add in the accessibility mode, the pattern goes on top of the heart, so it's hard to even see that heart there in the first place. So if you had accessibility mode on, you wouldn't even know why the potion wasn't sending through.
Okay.
And so it feels like we're getting a lot better with it nowadays, where accessibility is actually making it accessible for the players. But before, like just a while ago, it was just it's not it's putting a sticker on it saying that it's accessible without it actually going through the process of let's make sure that's accessible.
Yeah, they didn't do
Instead
their
of
due
just putting it-
diligence in terms of
Yeah.
making sure that it actually works. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think it was just like more recently Overwatch. Apparently there were people that had color blindness and said that their colorblind mode didn't do anything.
Oh
So
man. Yeah.
and it was just like,
Yikes.
oh. But yeah, no, there's absolutely I think an aspect of that of just putting it on the box, just we
Mhm.
have accessibility just because it is such a, it's supposed to, for a good reason, be like a positive thing
Right.
about your game,
Mhm.
but it ends up being used as a marketing point
Right, like a
many
gimmick.
times. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it is really sad. It is really sad. And I
Yeah.
think it goes back once again to what Demo said of like, if there's a group that people can go to and they're legitimately interested in making a
Mhm.
game accessible, if there was a group that could be like, okay, this works, this is not going to work,
Mhm.
I think that would be really cool. Because even like we saw some people that appeared in the presentation, they were consultants
Yeah.
that will cater to that person's specific
Mhm.
conditions and situations, but it may not account for other ones.
Yeah.
So sometimes even just having one person may not be enough for a lot of these.
Mhm. Rely on the experts that are like very high up in their field in terms of understanding,
Mhm.
like very specifically, these are the things that are important for these specific disabilities or these specific needs, right? And
Yeah.
April brought up a point in chat. Do you think a studio the size of From Software could create different fights being accessible and challenging, but in different ways? I would push, and Seraphian said, FromSoft is a smaller studio with about 400 employees. I have a couple of, counterpoints, I guess, to that would be one, they're one of the biggest developers in the game. Elden Ring sold like crazy, right? Like they are bringing in profits like crazy. They could hire some more people that could focus on accessibility. Or two, they could reach out to these consultants and get some opinions about how can we make our games more accessible, but still innately, be, what we intend artistically. And then, what was the second? I had a second one, but now I lost it. Yeah.
Mhm. No, and I do agree with like Seraphian that they do get a huge spotlight and they are smaller, but like you said, Demo, absolutely. They should be able, especially now that they've had success after success, they do have room to grow and to you know, think about these things. I
Mhm.
think a problem with it, and again, also not excusing it, but it's something that I noticed is that Japan is very insular in terms
Yeah.
of like with a lot of these things, and I think
Yeah.
that contributes to Nintendo from software. A lot of these studios not
100%.
having a lot of these accessibilities, and even with us talking about this, a lot of this conversation happening in many parts of the world, a lot of it I've noticed doesn't reach Japan. So
Yeah.
it's hard to get a lot of these thoughts and a lot of these ideas into Japan. So it comes, I think, from a place of not even knowing it happens. And if it pops up as like an angry comment in like a tweet, then it's like, oh, why are these people angry at us at this thing we didn't even know about? And then
Right.
it becomes more of like a defensive thing for. So it's like it's always difficult with a lot of these things, and it's definitely not an excuse, but I think it just becomes more of like a system wide thing of
Yeah.
like what the culture of these studios, like the place where these studios are from,
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
And
Cultural norms are a huge aspect to it. I think you nailed it right on
Mhm.
the head, Rods. Is like in Japan, like maybe it's just not a thing that is brought up very often. It's not a thing that is talked about very often, and it's just a completely separate, different, almost, I don't want to say echo chamber, but like they're just completely in a different headspace when it comes to like developing their games. JRP, there's a reason why we have categories that are JRPGs versus like traditional RPGs, right? Like completely different headspace and development, like styles and things like that. So yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with you there. I think the point came back to me is I know FromSoft's like engine in terms of like how the game underlying in the mechanics works. Like I can understand how providing accessibility features could be very, very difficult to build into a very customized engine like what they have for Dark Souls, Elden Ring, etc. Right? Like there's a reason why their games run at 60 FPS and don't go above 60 FPS. Like it's the physics system, it's all of those things, and I can see how it could be very difficult to like technologically like program in accessibility features and things like that. But yeah, I definitely get both sides of the coin.
It's definitely much like Bethesda. It's a mishmash of technologies from the last 2 decades that's been put into one engine. It's like, oh,
yeah, exactly.
But also to that point, I think that many times we usually talk about more of like the negatives of these big publishers and things like that. But I think with Sony having published Bloodborne and Activision having published Sekiro, that's a place where these more Western sensibilities are in touch directly with these studios. And I think, for example, with Sony, not necessarily enforcing, I think, but like very much being like, hey, we should have these accessibility features. That's where I think that it's a place where they could, give this sort of input to a studio like From Software. Be like, hey, this is important. And I think in a kind of a different way, but it was when Sony worked, or FromSoft worked with Sony for Bloodborne, that you saw a lot of advancements in their technical side of their engine. So because they got help from a lot of studios from Sony to like really bring it up, and that you see a huge difference from their games up to that point, and then after that point in the technical aspect.
Yeah.
So I think that those sorts of collaborations can help, not just in this technical side, but also help push forward these sorts of features. And I think that that's where these bigger publishers can and should hopefully be able to help if they're like, hey, we like having games that are accessible to people. Please include these in your game.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. All right. Any final thoughts before we close things out for the Accessibility Showcase 2024? Rods? AKO?
I think the only other thing, it's not really, so what am I trying to say?
Take your time. It's okay.
Yeah.
What was the name of it? Well, and I gotta find it now. Uh-oh.
Yeah, they have all their trailers listed under the channel that broadcast it.
Yeah, here we go. Feudal Fantasy. The game where it had like the content warning list and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very interesting how they have the content warning list inside of the game. I don't know if the game is free to play or if you have to buy it first. But it would like suck to buy it and then play it only to view the content warning list and be like, here's stuff that I'm not a huge fan of. But it's also something that's on Steam, I believe, so you can always refund that. But it seems like from the very little that I see, it's if you want to bring the video back up.
What was
let me
the name
find
of the
it
game?
here. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to look for it.
Was it Videoverse?
No, it was Feudal Fantasy.
I'm not seeing
not
it in their
showing up
list.
here.
It was this one with like the different.
Oh, maybe that was it.
Was this
Whoops. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the site is called Feudal Fantasy.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
See, like right there. But at 1559, you can see part of the content warning
Let's
list
see
and
here.
I've
got the individual.
We're on the trailer.
This is the individual trailer.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
Right here.
Yeah, so if you like press play for like a second, you'll see that you click on there. Yeah. So it seems like you can see exactly like which people you would not want to talk to if you have a specific issue with that type of content. But sir, but I just feel like I don't know how you would go about this. Like, is it just don't interact with these people at all? Is there like a turning off of this content? I'm I'm a little confused about like how to go forward with all of that stuff. Especially since it like spoils stuff. If you see like under bad language, it's like, oh, that language wasn't that bad at all, but I just spoiled everything for myself, you know?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
And so, like, at the top where it says abuse/bullying, it says in general, the videoverse communities are quite hostile. The characters who tend to troll and upset the communities are these players. And then it goes into what those characters would do. I would rather have the characters who tend to troll and upset the communities at the bottom so that you can see the content of what could happen so you know if you're comfortable with that or not, and then spoil yourself on who those characters are.
So
you
have
know?
an additional click to reveal those things, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
if you are completely fine with those things, well, now you know exactly who you're going to be bullied by. And you're going to have a
Right.
feeling of, I don't want to interact with those people, not because I have an issue with the content, but because it's just one of those like human connection things where like if you know someone's going to be mean to you, you're not going to want to interact with those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
so it
think.
kind of ruins the experience of playing on an internet simulator.
Right. Yeah. I guess what they intended was like the left side being kind of your list of warnings, and then if one of those is specifically, triggering to you or anything like that, you can click on it and it would give you more details. But I completely understand what you mean of it'd be nice to have a description along with just because it's only a couple of words on the left, right? And it could be various different things within those subcategories. So
Yeah, and if you see like the scroll, it seems like there's a lot of information that's cut out underneath
yeah.
the spoiled characters. And like for example, gore/violence, I have an issue with like extreme amounts of gore, but that's different than like regular amounts of gore. And so
Right.
if it says like, oh, these players have gore, and then it's like, but it's actually not a lot. It's like just a little bit. It's like, well, now I got spoiled that these characters are gonna get hurt.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like there's
Good
a
point.
lot of subjectivity to a lot of these.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
and so there's just a lot of like, I don't think nuance is the right term, but just like there's a lot of variables as to what these would be, and it seems like the variables are in additional details underneath the characters who would do those things when it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that it would be interesting for any of these games to have something like this, to absolutely have more general information at the top and then spoiler warning things below.
Right.
I do think that and just as a quick add-on to this, I do completely agree with Ikea, the fact that these should be warnings that, in at least how they showed it to us here, they're hidden way deep in the preferences.
Yeah.
It should be front and center on the store's page, and storefronts in general, I think, should have a place for that.
Yeah.
Where people can check. But yeah, I agree that it should be something that people can check before they buy, because some stores don't even let you refund. Looking at Nintendo, I think PlayStation now has a policy to return, but like, yeah, like people need to know these things before they buy.
Right.
Yeah, and like Ape says in chat, also on Steam, content warnings are always at the bottom of the description.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is
I didn't even
really
know about that.
Yeah, which I think is a little messed up, because if you're reading the description and then all of a sudden you see, oh, this happens to this person, and you're like, ah, goodness, why is that there?
Right.
Well, the content warning was at the bottom.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, I think having a tag system for it, and especially like you can filter things for like adult content and things like that on Steam. It'd be nice if you could filter by certain different tags that are specific to specific content warnings and things like that. That'd be nice, just to eliminate it from ever popping up on the store at all. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Good
still
points.
I think kind of as a more of kind of not closing point, but just kind of bringing all together, I think, with what we've been saying, there's a lot of room for improvement still in the industry in general, not only in the games themselves, but even storefronts, even in the way it's communicated. I think it does make sense that it's still a very young industry. But to be fair, I don't think many other industries do nearly as much either. Like you look at the film industry and stuff like that. So like it is absolutely cool. I feel like we're talking about these things, but we're not criticizing necessarily the fact that these studios are attempting to do this and trying to get there. It's just very much the fact that there's still so much room for improvement, and many times it is talking to people that are experts. It's talking to people that have different perspectives, different cultures.
Right.
But I think as a whole, it's first of all really great to see that like Laura K. Buzz is putting this together, is bringing attention to this, because that's absolutely a fantastic first step for people to even learn that this is a thing at all. And I think again, having the people that actually benefit from this in the presentation, it's such a fantastic move. But yeah, it's still, I think, a huge long road ahead of the industry to add these new features and things that again make it possible for even people to even be able to play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the second annual accessibility summer showcase. Like 2 years ago, this wouldn't be here.
Yeah. I mean, it was just recently that they have an entire category at the Game Awards for accessibility features, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a very new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's another great way to bring attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah, Laura was saying in the chat before the premiere started of the video that like she was like very encouraged by how many people are picking up this showcase, like us. You know, last year I didn't cover it at all on my channel. I wasn't even aware of it, and the fact that we know about it, we're covering it along with Summer Game Fest, Xbox's event, like all those things, like elevating it to that status and trying to get eyes on it is super awesome. And like I'm appreciative of being in such an awesome hobby that like is in tune to this stuff, is trying to get better, right? An entire industry that's millions of dollars and growing, right, is focusing on these things. It's obvious, like you said, it's a continuous improvement effort. Like I don't think we'll ever get to a point where we're 100% satisfied with all of the accessibility features, right? It's always going to be an effort that will continue to strive forward and get better and better and better on. But yeah, perfection, I don't think exists in something for accessibility. It's just really pushing to do more every single time you iterate through and do a project. So yeah.
And I agree. It's hard to strive for perfection when everyone's disabilities are so varied. One person's dyslexia is not someone else's dyslexia, you know? And like one person's like physical disabilities, like one person is paralyzed from the neck down, another person may only have one hand, someone might be blind. It's very hard to make a game accessible for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The most important thing to me is that they're putting the effort in. They're trying.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And also with what AKO said, I think that's where it's really cool to see too. And this is not all encompassing, but many situations and many things can't just be solved with a toggle. So it's cool to see something like Elsie having a slider so that you can manually select a color or a mix of colors for things, because even slight differences in that can mean the person being able to see something or not. So having the ability to just have any value within a slider is really cool.
Right.
And works towards that a little bit more.
It would be awesome if like there was some sort of like technology that we could create where, you know how for color blindness there's like 3 main differences. Like there's the red, green, I think it's like red, green, blue, red, and blue, green. I don't really remember. But I'm just going off of like tones in people's eyes. But it would be cool to see like a slider where you could have like the different presets and then just shift it to where it looks right for you. I feel like that'd be interesting.
Sliders are nice, that's for sure.
Yes, sliders are
Yeah.
really nice, but
Yeah.
I also know that it's difficult for people to use sliders because, as we saw earlier in the showcase, like there were a lot of things where it was like, here's an auto run button, so you don't have to press and hold a button, but you need to
Mhm.
press and hold a button in order to use a slider, or you have to use a
Mm.
joystick, and so it's like it's really hard to make certain, like I said earlier, it's hard to make everything accessible because at some point, the more accessible you make it for one person, the less accessible it's going to be for someone else.
Yeah, that's tough.
And
is
so I
tough.
feel like there needs I think having an accessibility summer showcase and more things like this can influence a lot of people to create more games with accessibility in mind.
Yeah.
Like instead of having games that we're now going to add stuff to it to make it accessible, have accessibility be the goal in the first place.
Yeah.
Like with Cellular City, like it seems very much like it was made to be accessible in the first place.
Yeah.
It was made with people who can't see in mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just circling back to what Rod said earlier with like accessibility not being very like well versed in film.
Mhm.
I think the first time I've ever seen like an accessible movie was the Barbie movie that came out. It was either this year or last year. Because on HBO Max, they have an ASL version.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
So
cool.
you can watch the regular version and then the ASL version. I think it's like maybe like 10 minutes longer, but has a person on screen who does American Sign Language.
Mm.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's another version, but I think it'll be a quick search for me to do.
Yeah,
So maybe
that is definitely like, especially as movies and stuff like that are now digital, they are able to do stuff like that. So it's really cool to see that some services and things like that are putting in that option for people. Because yeah, it allows more people to be able to experience it for sure.
100%. All
Yeah.
right. I think that is a good overview of everything that we saw. Thank you for the conversations, guys. You had some really good insights. I really appreciate hearing from different perspectives from you guys. So deeply
And thank you.
appreciated. Thank you, Rods, and thank you, AKO, for joining us in reacting to the Accessibility Summer Showcase 2024.
Yeah, of course.
With that, we'll go ahead and end the stream. We will be back later this afternoon for Summer Game Fest proper. I think we will be starting that stream probably 30 to 45 minutes maybe before that starts, because there's a lot of prediction capable things that we could go through for that. So look out for that. It will be myself, Rods, Caden, Richard, and Sir Reldar reacting to Summer Game Fest. So look forward to that. We'll see you a little bit later this afternoon. We will be raiding out, so definitely stick around, friends. We'll raid one of our CKT buddies as we're done here. So thank you all and have a good one. See you later. Bye.
Bye.